cheating on your wife with your pastor's wife. It seems that I spent the first 16 years of my life waiting for my mother and the last 8 waiting for my wife, Joyce. Although I am only 30, in 2016 I can hum every word of Pee Wee King's old 1951 song Slow Poke, the most important part of which is as follows. Time means nothing to you, I'm waiting. And then, I'm late again, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, no quarter to 10. How does a 30-year-old know this song, you ask? It's very simple. My dad used to sing it when my sister and I were waiting endlessly for my mom. I hated this song at first, but it stuck with me because it was my only defense against my mom's tardiness, which I never stopped hating. If I hated waiting for my mother, why, you may ask, did I marry Joyce, who was just as completely unconcerned about punctuality? The answer to that question is simple, too, though it has 3 parts. 1. She wasn't like that when we first met, or even when we first got married. 2. I've fallen in love with her. 3. She often apologizes for her lateness, doing me unthinkable favors. Despite my love for Joyce, I have become less tolerant of her tardiness and more concerned about something she has embraced in the last few years, religious fanaticism. Although I am not a religious person, I am moral and believe in the golden rule as a basic human imperative in dealing with others. One Saturday night, I was a little out of my comfort zone because we were at a hotel where we were going to meet for dinner with a minister and his wife who was applying for a job at Joyce's church in a town about halfway between his town and ours. Joyce was the chair of the interview committee for the job, and this was her second meeting with Pastor John Perkins. She dragged me along with her because his wife had arrived and she thought it would be awkward if she was alone with him like the first time she met him. While Joyce was upstairs doing her hours of preparation for such a dinner, I went down to the hotel sports bar to watch the game and have a few drinks. It was only 6 o'clock, and dinner wasn't until 8, so instead of sitting in room 810, I figured I'd have more fun at the sports bar. I play in several amateur leagues depending on the season. It's spring, and Friday night I played softball. I always take off my wedding ring because it has a psychological negative effect on my game, especially when I pick up a bat. In the second inning, I hit a shot down the left center line, and I thought I could make a double. I had to dive to second base to get ahead of the left fielder's throw, and when I did, I dislocated the ring finger on my left hand. It hurt a lot, although I put a Band-Aid on it as soon as I scored a run on the next batter's single. I also soaked it with ice water after the game, but it swelled up so much that I couldn't put on my wedding ring. Apparently, the hotel sports bar was a small meat market in this unfamiliar city, because I saw a huge number of women in it, most of whom were either attractive or promiscuous, or both. It was very crowded, and I was lucky enough to get a small table in the corner, albeit overlooking one of the large television screens. I was sitting at the small table sipping a beer, alternately watching the baseball game or the women, when a stunning red-headed girl came up to me with something that looked like a foo-foo drink in her hand. She looked to be about 5 years older than my 30s, with a pretty face, large breasts, and shapely legs that were accentuated by her 5-inch heels. Not that I noticed. "Do you mind if I sit down? I need to stretch my legs as these shoes are killing me, and this is the only unoccupied seat, unless you vacate it," the red-headed siren said. No problem," I stammered, standing up and pushing back a vacant chair for her. "I guess these shoes are uncomfortable," was my brilliant opening dialogue. "You're right," she said with a broad smile as she sat down. My senses were attuned now, and I couldn't help but notice her perfect body as she lowered herself into the chair. "You don't mind if I take my shoes off, do you? I promise my feet don't stink," she giggled. "No, help yourself," I replied quickly, as if I was going to tell her, "Just deal with the pain." "Oh, that feels so good," she murmured, taking off both shoes and rubbing her left foot. "Look at this medieval torture device," she continued, holding out one of the shoes to me. It looked like it was meant for display only, and the practicality of it was, I know I could never walk in these, I grinned, looking at her left hand that held the shoe. No wedding rings. Maybe she thinks I'm single and wants to pick me up. I allowed myself to daydream. No, she's too attractive for that. She can get any guy she wants, I quickly told myself, noticing even more clearly her perfect facial features, dancing green eyes and big tapered eyebrows. "Why are you here?" she asked. Instead of launching into a long explanation, I replied, "I was expecting someone for dinner and decided to grab a drink beforehand and watch the game." "I hope I'm not distracting you," she smiled, flapping her eyes. I wanted to say, "You're the biggest distraction I've ever seen in my life." But instead I lied. "I'm not really interested in the game, so why are you here?" "I'm going to meet someone later too, but he's not home and I don't know when he's coming because he's always late. So I decided to get a drink for myself and this was the only place nearby." "What's your name?" I asked, extending my hand. "I'm Brian." "I'm Alicia, Brian," she replied, flapping her eyes again as she placed her soft hand in mine. "It's very nice to meet you." She held my hand for so long, which was inappropriate for someone who wasn't married to her or her good friend, but for some reason I wasn't complaining. In fact, the reason was obvious. She was sending an electrical charge down my spine. Alicia seemed to be the easiest to talk to of anyone I'd ever met, but also the most flirty and provocative. I bought each of us 2 more drinks as we chatted and laughed. Our conversation got to the point where we were exchanging racy stories and jokes when my cell phone rang, bringing me out of the trance I was in while looking at Alicia's beautiful face and her mesmerizing cleavage. "Hi," I answered innocently. "Hi, Brian," Joyce's voice boomed out. "I just wanted to let you know that I heard from John Perkins and he won't be here until 9, and I could use the extra time to get ready." "Why?" said I to myself. How could she possibly need extra time? Then I remembered that in addition to the usual tedious ritual of preparation, she needed to tighten up her knowledge of the topics her church wanted to discuss with John. "Do you want me to redo the order?" I asked. "I already did that," she grinned. "I'll see you at the restaurant around 9. It was 7:15. "Okay, see you then," I said, cutting the call short. Turning back to Alicia, I saw that she was looking at a text message on her smartphone. She typed something short on the keypad and then put it in her purse. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "No, not really. Just a delayed time when I'm supposed to meet someone I'm supposed to meet." "I hope you're not disappointed that you want to spend some more time with me," she said, fluttering her eyelashes again, while simultaneously tipping her long red mane back over her shoulder and smiling, showing off her flawless pearly whites. "No, no problem," I stammered as she placed her hand on top of mine. She didn't remove her hand, but a few minutes later her bare left leg touched my foot. At about 7:30, she looked at the clock on her perfectly tanned arm with just the right amount of muscle. "Brian, I hope I don't seem out of place, but given your delay, I was wondering if you could help me with something in my room upstairs. I just can't connect to the internet with my laptop, and I really need it tonight. And the hotel doesn't have an IT person at the hotel tonight, and the front desk wasn't helpful." "That's ridiculous," I said to myself, relying on the golden rule of morality. I'd never cheated on Joyce, but she was the most attractive woman I'd ever seen in my life. Not just in person, but in any media. Was she really proposing to me thinking I was single? Well, I'm, married," I replied, stammering. "Me too," she replied with a smile, squeezing my hand tighter. "I'm just asking you to help me with my computer," she continued with a twinkle in her eyes, and flirtatiously fluttered her eyelashes again. "I'm sure it won't take long." Okay," I stammered, seemingly losing the ability to say no to this siren. She smiled the biggest smile I'd ever seen, which seemed to turn from sweet to snide. When we entered room 334, to my relief, she actually pulled out her laptop. I had hoped she would leave the door to the room open, but it automatically closed, as most hotel room doors do. I started her laptop on the table in the room. She stood next to me, putting one hand on my shoulder and pointing with her other hand. "You wouldn't be abusing my trust if I told you my password, would you?" She grinned as soon as the machine started. "No," I laughed, turning my head to her and finding her face with twinkling eyes, pouty lips, and intoxicating scent right next to mine. I played with the computer for a bit. Alicia's hand never left my shoulder, occasionally squeezing it when I seemed to be making progress. I'm by no means a computer expert, but I'm fairly familiar and knowledgeable with the operating system she had, and I'd set up the internet on Joyce's laptop earlier that day. After about 5 minutes of playing with it, Alicia connected. "Thank you so much, Brian," she purred, kissing me on the cheek. "Can you click on this?" she asked, pointing to an icon on the screen. I did. A picture of Alicia without clothes in an unthinkable pose appeared. Her body was incredibly alluring. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she giggled. "I didn't realize that was the first picture. Could you please get out of that folder?" My hands froze on the keyboard, and my eyes froze on the screen. What didn't freeze was my body. It pulsed faster than it ever had in my life. "Looks like you have a problem," she whispered in my ear in a husky voice, stroking my body. When my eyes finally broke away from the screen and looked at her, her lips were very close to mine. We exchanged passionate kisses. There was something about Alicia that went even beyond her beauty. Must have been the pheromones, because at that moment, I lost all control. My golden rule went from the foundation of my morality to the foundation of immorality when, without any conscious thought of Joyce, I had sex with Alicia. When we were done, we lay facing each other. She played with my body and I pinched her breasts. Time seemed to stop until I glanced at the clock next to the bed. 8:22. "I have to meet Joyce at 9:00, I muttered. "And I'm too euphoric to move," I continued. "Joyce is your wife?" she asked with a half smile and a somewhat perplexed look. Yes, was all I could manage to answer. With more energy than I had, Alicia jumped out of bed, pulled me close to her, and said, "We have time to take a shower." Giggling, Alicia led me to the bathroom as I stumbled out. Luckily, this hotel had oversized showers. She set the water temperature to her liking, and then pushed me into the shower stall. We giggled as we rinsed the water off each other. The water invigorated me. I'd never had sex in the shower before, but it wasn't long before Alicia was resting her hands against the shower stall wall opposite the shower head, pressing herself against me. Somehow Alicia and I made it to the hotel dining room by 9:02. We walked in together, me looking more like a zombie than a human, each looking for our dining companions, but of course without PDAs. I turned to Alicia and muttered, "Thank you." She murmured back, "My pleasure, lover boy." I took a few steps ahead of Alicia, I thought. I spotted Joyce off to the side in the dining room, remarkable that she was on time, even if it was an hour after the originally scheduled meeting. She was talking to a guy in his early 40s who I realized was John Perkins. As I approached them, Joyce saw me and exclaimed, "I see you've already met John's wife, Alicia." Only then did I notice that Alicia was standing half a step behind me with the grin of the cat that ate the canary. I assumed Joyce introduced me to John and shook Alicia's hand, while Alicia said something about how we met at the sports bar and quickly realized we would be having dinner with our spouses. I can't be sure, though, because I was in a fog. I was probably acting like an idiot during the dinner conversation. My fluency was not helped by the fact that Alicia rubbed her bare foot against my leg for almost the entire dinner. After we ate, John and Joyce went to the hotel lobby to talk in more detail. "Why don't you two go back to the sports bar?" Joyce teased Alicia and me. At the sports bar, I bought Alicia a drink. If I thought she would ignore what happened between 7:30 and 9 p.m., I guessed right. After one sip, Alicia giggled. "You're really fun to be with, Brian." I don't remember having this much fun in my life. Overwhelmed by the sudden wave of honesty, I could only weakly but sincerely reply, I never believed it could be this good. You're a goddess. I hope you'll suggest to Joyce that her church hire John as pastor. Think how much more fun we could have, especially on Sunday mornings when John was preaching and Joyce was doing her church stuff. At dinner, I learned that Alicia was as irreligious as I was, and that she and John had married before he had his sight. She supported him while he was in theological school. I've been a faithful wife for 17 years, Alicia grins. I also learned over dinner that she was very well into her 39 years. Now that I've found such a lover, I'm going to get some real pleasure, she continued, stroking my body, getting me the arousal I wanted. Joyce and John finished about half an hour later, finding Alicia and me at the bar. We said our goodbyes and went to our rooms. I hoped Alicia had cleaned up 334 after our sex, but in my induced stupor, I couldn't remember if she had or not. You and Alicia seem to get along well, Joyce said to me as she took off her blouse in room 810. Isn't she cute? Sweet wasn't what I first thought of when I remembered Alicia. What came to mind was fantastic cheater. The mention of Alicia's name reminded me of the state of my body. I grabbed Joyce and made love to her. As Joyce and I lay there cooing, resting her head on my shoulder, she giggled. What's gotten into you, hubby? Can't I make love to my wife without something coming over me? I chuckled. It wasn't lovemaking. It was animal sex, she giggled back. Are you complaining? I asked. No, she giggled, uttering her second swear word of the year. I want a repeat tomorrow morning. Thanks to my fixation on Alicia, Joyce did get a repeat of her sex around 7 in the morning. As Joyce and I were driving home, she asked, So what do you think of John? He seems very qualified, I replied sincerely, although I honestly couldn't remember a single thing he said that impressed me. I didn't really concentrate on his words, though, since I had spent most of dinner trying to keep Alicia's bare foot from making contact with my body. What do you think? Did he impress you? I asked. Yes, he did, even more so than the first time we met. I have another candidate to interview next week who is coming to my church, and then I will offer the sacristan my recommendation for the 2 finalists. I think John will be one of the 2 finalists, she replied. 2 months later, as I was cleaning up the breakfast dishes shortly after Joyce left, surprisingly on time, for the 7 o'clock sunrise service, there was a knock at the door. Opening it, I saw a smiling Alicia in a raincoat. Don't be surprised to see me, she grinned. You know Joyce Church hired John. I thought you'd be at the service, I smiled, grabbing Alicia's hand and pulling her into the house. I don't go if I can avoid it, and certainly not when I have more important things to do, she muttered as she removed her cloak, exposing her flawless body. Less than 2 minutes later, Alicia and I were making love in my house. As Alicia and I began round 2 on the bed in the guest room, she giggled. Aren't you afraid Joyce will come home early? No, I chirped. Time means nothing to her. I wait, and then she's late again. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, no 9:45, at which time I had sex with Alicia again, pressing my breasts against the mammoth wonders on her chest. I don't take offense at Joyce for being late when I'm having sex with Alicia. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.